Part 10. Okay. Hope you're as relieved as I am. I had to go through 114 videos, narrow it down to 90 videos, and cram them into 9 videos. And this 10 video has like 2 videos, actually 92 videos. 2 videos I reviewed, barely any notes. And the rest is just about reviewing everything. Okay. So just scanning through all these notes and trying to highlight the most relevant of the things that I highlighted as being most relevant in those videos. um, all right, so I brought up the clip about some guy who works. He was a high-ranking executive of the State Department, or so. I forgot his title. He talks about big pharma and not just the oil industry has a disproportionate say in what goes on. I talk about how strippers, hookers, escorts are one category, fat and unattractive women another category, sluts another category, lesbians another category, and atheists, psychiatrists, and psychologists also are the main categories that feminists support, and by default psychiatry, because psychology and psychiatry are merged together these days. Islam is the best solution. Talk about homosexual, atheist denial, psychologist denial. Talk about who the media is controlled by: racist whites, atheist Jews, Christians, secret society people. I talk about what I train in. Talk about how they're not too smart and they go after people they don't like, and the gang stalkers. Talk about Eve is not equal but supporting by the side of man and helping his infrastructure loyal. But people say, well, people always argue the wrong thing when they disagree with me. It makes me really wonder, am I just so much smarter than everybody? Or are they just all a bunch of bootlickers to the occult or brainwashed by the occult? I'm not saying that women aren't equal in the eyes of God. I'm not saying that women all go to hell and men go to heaven. I'm saying that their role in society is not the same, and women don't have the same power over society that men have if you are a Christian or Muslim or a Jew anyway, which is the truest religions, the truest expression of religions, the truest religious expressions, and the truest religious ideologies that we have survived to this day. Talk about how undercovers want to establish the appearance of a flawed mental state. They use my videos to establish a threat. Go back to number 1. Number 3, they bait and provoke. 4, discredit me, possibly assassinate, but bottom line, to create a pretense to move on me. 5, they're egotistical and delusional. 6, I'm more insightful and I'm offering up to $3,025 to beat me in the ring, which cannot be done unless you're insightful. Again, these notes. Gays turn gay in jail. Not all of them, of course, but a lot of them. Especially because they're being raped, and just like little kids turn gay when they're being raped by men. And if you're weak-minded, a lot of these people are weak-minded. It's because not everyone who's molested by a man turns gay, but the weak-minded are the most likely. Why do you think gays act so effeminate in jail? In general. Fascists, racists, and Mormons, hate groups, etc. caused me to say that black people are superior in a video once to counter all of their arguments. Not really because I wanted everyone to accept that idea. Talk about IQ tests and how they're biased to people with, you can't look at IQ tests in the terms of races and ethnic groups because they give the privileged groups and the groups that bootlick to the privileged groups the advantage. Go back to my other videos if you want to hear this. It's just all review, women betrayed me. Okay, that's all I really want to go through. Quick little review of some of the stuff I talked about in this series. If you have any questions, ask me while I'm alive. It's part of the reason why I made so many videos. But at the same time, the same problem the Bible has is you'll have people quoting one video trying to argue an idea from another video. Just like today, I quoted Revelation 7, talking about how the Jews have a special place. Certain Jews have a special place. The ones who stayed true to God and Jesus, had a special place according to the Bible. And and she wants to argue, I think it was from John or something, saying, well, whether they're Jew, Greek, blah, 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 they're entitled to the same awards and riches. Like, she missed the point. You know? And I don't want anyone to make the same mistake that people make with the Bible with my videos. You know, focusing on what I'm talking about in one video and seeing another video and failing to put the two together and see what I'm truly getting at and exactly what I mean. But he said this. No, he said this. He said what he meant. He said what he meant. Then what he said this. He said this. And they're arguing, right? That's why I went so far out of my way to elaborate and elaborate. I learned from the mistakes of the people who wrote down what the prophets have said. I have so elaborated on things. I've left so little room for people to claim that I contradict. Anytime I feel that someone could take something as a contradiction, I elaborate until they go, oh, okay, you know. And it shouldn't be a competition about who understands my view the best. You know, who's the biggest Chukwuemeka fan. You know, just like people who follow Panthers or Malcolm X shouldn't argue about who's the biggest fan of these people, who understands them the best, who's you know, the most qualified to be the spokesperson for my point of view. I hope it never, you know, turns into that, you know. And I'd like to end this by talking about how, yes, you know, I was very noble. The reason why I was persecuted by psychiatry, especially in the end, was because I couldn't stand the thought of them putting my cousins through what I've been through, unfairly labeling them with a mental illness and treating them as such and not addressing the real problems they face. You know, they don't know what it's like. They don't want to know what it's like to know best about yourself and have a bunch of bootlickers tell you something else, you know. I'll tell you like this, almost every single person who has something wrong with them, contrary to popular belief, they know that something is wrong with them, or they can be easily convinced. If you find yourself in a situation where you don't agree and you're not easily convinced that there's something wrong with you, guess what? There isn't anything wrong with you. If you find yourself comparing yourself to other people and understanding that it's stress and understandable what got you to behave a certain way, or that your beliefs aren't the type of beliefs that are up for debate, you know, that you know, you shouldn't be drugged, you know. It's pathetic. We basically have inferior people, inferior schools of thought, drugging the rest of us. And just like I told the lady on the phone today, they're going to regret what they did. It's just like things like today. They're going to regret it. I promise you that. I promise you that. Also, they're going to regret everything they're doing because they're putting the institutions of oppression in place. And Islam is the fastest growing religion, not their religions. So what do you think is going to be socially normative in the future? Your New Age religions? Granted, there's going to be a bunch of New Age whores. You know, it's growing. Yeah, feminism and all this stuff, it's growing. But it's not the fastest growing school of thought. Where we're headed is that Islam is going to take over all these institutions. You know, you could even say it's quote-unquote karma. Because in the end, my friends, you are going to suffer at the hands of the same institutions that you try to force your opinion on other people. What's going to be socially normative is Islam. And your punk ass, occult ass, bitch ass is going to be put in an institution like the faggot, like the atheist, like the feminazi bitch you are, like the racist punk you are. You're going to be shoved in an institution and drugged into being a Muslim. And that actually is the only difference between that and what's going on right now is that's for the best. What's going on right now is some Babylonian bullshit. You might think that I talk a lot. You should see the books and books written about Babylonian pathetic schools of thought, you know. There's this one guy, I put it in the comments, it doesn't come to the mind, that University of Phoenix looks up to really, you know. He's this guy that they quoted in the, you know, World Traditions of Religions or some religious class they have, right? Forgot his name. He spent 20 years going around the world studying religions. And his point of view is inferior to that of mine 20 years ago. And I spent 20 years, since 20 years ago, doing better than he did. While he's wasting time going around taking part in all these rituals, I'm actually critically thinking and studying. That's why my point of view is superior. I'm closer to God. And I'll put this guy's name in the comments. Thank you.